Hi, everybody. What's up? It's the Faceless Preacher. And I just wanted to get on here to say my testimony. And this testimony is what really got me truly wanting to walk and do the things of God. Now, I always believed in God because my mom and dad had divorced when I was young. But my mom always had uh, me and my sister in church, and we would go. She'd always have us in church, so and I'd say my mom would have us there, and our grandma would be there too. So my mom and grandma really are the ones who really got me into Jesus because they had us in church all the time, made sure we were in church. So I knew, and this is very important because I always believed in God because I knew that. But at the same time, I never really truly wanted to live for him, or it wasn't about just doing the right thing or always wanting to follow his commands. For me, it was just like he was just a safety net. So when I fell in trouble, I knew to go to him. But it wasn't because even if it was things that I've done on my own, I knew to go to him. But the problem was he wasn't real enough to where I felt that I needed to do everything he said in the Bible or truly live my life like the way he wanted to have me live. Because you kind of have this more of intellectual assent, which means like you kind of aware that God is there, but you're not really aware of his relationship through Jesus. Like you're aware of God and you're aware of Jesus, but you're not really truly having a relationship with him to where you pray and you pray to him all the time, and it's more of a back and forth, like everyday type of thing. It wasn't like that. It was more like if I was late on a project in school, if I needed help, I would pray. And I remember he would answer my prayers too, but it wasn't like, I was like, oh, answer the prayer. It was more like a genie type of way. Like I would pray and then I would be happy that he answered my prayers. I was in the gospel choir, so I would sing. So I was in church a lot. So even I did plays in church as well. But the main thing about it was that I wasn't truly invested in him. It's so where, like, if I had something that I really needed or a question, it wasn't like I was praying to get an answer. It wasn't nothing like that. It wasn't like a continual relationship with him. It was just me going to him when I felt I needed him. So anyway, so I got to college, and when I was in school, didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I got into this major, and the major I was in, it was a very tough major, but it wasn't really something I really wanted to do. And but it was in the major was pharmacy, and so I was in pharmacy. I didn't really um I just did it just because I knew it paid a lot of money. It was something, a good career, and I was always good at school, so um, I was smart and intelligent to where that I figured I was smart enough to do the work, and I really was because I studied, like, literally. I went to the library every day for about 4 hours and studied in the library. Like, that's how devoted I was to this, to try to make sure I got good grades, because it was a competitive program. The school I went to, the pharmacy school I went to, was a competitive program. But the pre-pharmacy program was you had to get a certain amount of a certain good average to get into the actual pharmacy school after a while. So basically, it was very competitive. So basically, it was like if you had to almost get like straight A's or 4.0 just to make it into the pharmacy program. But anyway, so I was real stressed, and I was taking a very high level science courses and math courses, and I was doing well because I was studying like at least 4 hours every day in my subjects. Um, so I was doing that. Well, in college they say, like, I think every I forget what it is. It's like a certain amount, like every certain amount of credits, you're supposed to spend an hour outside a class and studying. It's supposed to be some type of thing. They would have some rule, but I would just do 4 hours a day usually at the library. As soon as I got done from class, I'd go straight to the library. So I did this stuff in regular college, stuff like that. Partied every now and then, but not too much because I was more focused on my studies. I partied sometimes on the weekends, but I remember I got drunk for the first time in college, and I liked the feeling of it, but I didn't like the taste of alcohol. I never liked the taste of alcohol. I would just drink because it made me feel more, to have more courage when it came to talking to women and stuff. But anyway, so I got I would do that from time to time, but and the funny thing is I really couldn't go to clubs because I was too young, because I graduated from high school early, so I was 17 entering college. So I couldn't go to any of the clubs. People were like, "Hey man, why you ain't at the clubs?" And I'd be like, "Cause I'm not 18 yet." But cause my birthday is a fall. I have a late birthday, so it's in the fall. So that was a situation with that. So I would go to like more house parties starting off and stuff. So anyway, so got a little further along. I'm in my second year now, and I'm still in pharmacy. I'm still in pharmacy, and all of a sudden I start getting really worried about my classes, because around the second year you're supposed to start applying for the pharmacy program part. And I was starting to take really hard courses. Like I was in like organic chemistry. I'd already did pretty well Chem 2 and Chem 1. I was in organic, and that stuff was just really difficult. And there was a thing going on, if you were good at Chem 1 or Chem 2, organic would be difficult for you. But if you weren't so good as Chem 1 and Chem 2, organic would be a lot easier. And see, mine was like more opposite. I was more better at Chem 1 and Chem 2. Organic chemistry is more difficult for me. So anyways, so I got into that, and all of a sudden I get to start getting very worried. I was worried a lot, to where I just start barely being able to sleep. I couldn't sleep. And this got worse and worse, to where I wasn't getting my sleep regularly every day. I kept worrying and worrying and worrying. And then somebody would say something, and then I worry about what they said. Like I remember time I even got to one person, and he said, "Oh, make sure you don't worry yourself to death." Then I start actually worrying about worrying myself to death. This is how crazy it was, to where I got so sick. And at that time, the only thing I had done was drink, and it wasn't even that much. And it was every now and then. At that point, I had never taken drugs. I never did any drugs. I never did anything like that. So I wasn't smoking or doing any drugs or any type of some sort. So it wasn't on LSD. So it wasn't nothing like that was bothering me in that way, And anytime, like I said, anytime I drink, it was every now and then, every other weekend, type thing. So it wasn't much, but I just kept worrying it, and all of a sudden, like, it got to a point where I couldn't sleep. Like I literally could not go to sleep. And so I started going like days without sleeping. And I mean, like, for some reason, I just couldn't sleep. And it started getting worse and worse. And then I started having these anxiety attacks. And the anxiety attacks, I don't know if you ever had an anxiety attack before, but it felt like I was literally having a heart attack. Like my chest would get tight, and I didn't know what it was. And I remember sounding like, what the heck is this? My chest would get so tight, and it would feel like I was having a heart attack. And I would go to the there was a little medical place on campus, and I would go there, and they'd be like, every time they checked me, they're like, "You're fine, nothing's wrong with you." And then so I'd be like, "What the heck?" So one time I went back because I was having problems with it again, and at that time I didn't know it was anxiety attack. I thought I was just having a heart attack. So I was walking my way, and there was a guy who came up to me. I'll never forget. It was this one guy. This one black guy came up to me, and he was like, I was talking to him, and he's like, and I told him, I was like, "Man, it feels like my chest gets tight, and I feel like I'm having a heart attack. But then every time I go to the doctors, they say I'm fine, nothing's wrong with me." And then he's like, he said it so fast, he just knew exactly what it was. He's like, "Oh, that's anxiety." Like the way he said it, like I knew that's what it was. He's like, "You're having that's what that is. You're having anxiety attacks." So I was like, "Wow, this is anxiety. Anxiety attacks ain't no joke." So that kept happening from here and now. I mean, like that kept happening like at that point for a while, and then I remember it got to a point where I started getting things in my mind to where I started thinking like I'm gonna worry myself to death, and I started getting these paranoia thoughts racing in my head all like the whole time, like as this was going on, and it got so bad that like I said, I couldn't sleep. It was really really bad, and I remember getting to a point where uh, it was near spring break, and my dad, we were supposed to go to a spring break trip down south in Florida, and my dad was like, "Oh well, maybe this will help." So I ended up going with my dad to Florida, and I remember when I went, because I actually ended up medically dropping my classes because it got so bad to where like I couldn't concentrate and I couldn't sleep, and I then when I got to Florida, it was almost like I think it was because people say like different states, you have different territorial situations and spirits and stuff. Believe me, it got so much worse when I got to Florida. As soon as I got to Florida, like I remember like, and there was this whole thing where I felt like I couldn't sleep. Like for some reason, I felt like I was never actually sleeping. Even sometimes when my dad told me I was sleeping, like I felt like I was never actually asleep. It was crazy. And then all of a sudden, the voices started. And when I mean voices, I start hearing voices. And I know now today I know these were demons. It was a demonic uh, oppression because, like I said, I was a Christian, so it wasn't possession totally. It was oppression, like I was being oppressed by a demon. I knew it was. So I started hearing voices, and the voices were telling me to kill myself over and over again. These were the voices were telling me, and it wasn't like I felt, oh, I'm sad, I'm depressed, and not to bank on anybody who's had those problems before, because that's very serious. If you ever think about killing yourself, you need to, get help immediately, and call 911 and get help, or reach out to somebody immediately. But for me, it wasn't like a thing where I'm depressed or I'm sad, like where I plan to where come to a conclusion where I have to take my life. It was nothing like that. It was almost like these voices were telling me and commanding me to do this. So I felt I had to do it because I felt like, and I actually remember now thinking about it now. And I know this is Holy Spirit helping me out. Remember this situation, because it's occurring to me now, selling my testimony. So I know somebody has to hear it. It's important that somebody hears it. But I kept hearing these voices, and they kept telling me to kill myself. And I kept thinking, and I started thinking that I was an antichrist. That's exactly what I was thinking. I remember saying that. I remember that coming out of my mouth, but I don't remember the source of it. If you can understand, like I remember saying things, and a lot of some things about this situation I don't remember actually saying. There's a lot of major parts of this situation that actually my own dad or mom had to fill me in because I don't remember. But I do remember saying certain things like I'm the Antichrist. I remember saying things like uh, I remember feeling like I needed to take myself out, like kill myself. So I'll never forget, like uh, I was at some restaurant or something like that. My dad was with me, and I remember getting free from my dad and just running and trying to find a place to kill myself. So I wanted to go to the water, but I remember I couldn't get to the water or something like that. So I remember, because remember we were in Florida. We were in the Middle Keys, actually, Florida. So I remember running, and there was this fire hydrant, and it was like I was so intent on taking myself out. I remember I went to the fire hydrant. I started banging my head repeatedly on this fire hydrant as hard as I could. I mean, as hard as I could, trying to take myself out, literally. And I remember, and my dad told me, because he couldn't catch me, because I was 19 at the time, and he was like in his 40s, so he wasn't gonna late 40s, I think. So he wasn't gonna catch me. So might even been, let me see, 19. Actually, wait, might even been like late, almost early 50s, I believe. Actually, yeah, might have even been early 50s or late 40s, whatever. Yeah, but he was around that time. So yeah, he couldn't catch me. So but at the time, these I remember these cops came out of nowhere. And I remember even asking my dad, like, what did you call the cops? And he said no. So I knew these were like angels, you know. And I've had a lot of problems with cops in the past, but in this situation, these cops literally, I know that they either were angels or God sent them, because they came out of nowhere. And they came, and I think it was just one cop at first, and he was holding me back. And eventually, now I barely remember what was happening, but my dad told me, and I wasn't that big. I was maybe like I think I was like 170 tops, 160 maybe tops, you know. And my dad told me it took 4 cops to take me down. 4. Obviously, there was some other power inside of me doing that, some demonic power that was giving me that strength, because my dad told me it took 4 cops to stop me from doing that. 4. 4 grown men to stop this, and I'm a little guy. I'm not that big. I'm just about, well, not too little. I'm about, 5'9", 5'9", 5'9.5" type. So I'm not. It's not like I'm 6'5" or nothing like that. So it took those cops, 4 cops, to get me down on the ground. So anyway, so they helped, but they were helping me stop me from taking myself out. So I ended up doing that. They handcuffed me, put me into. I went to a psych ward in Florida, and to this day I want to go back actually and say, try to get help and tell those people how they helped me. But anyway, so when I went there, it just kept getting worse and worse, and this is the point where I start hearing them. I start feel like I remember blacking out, coming to, and I remember that sometimes I would remember certain things. Like some people, I even remember the people that treated me bad in there. Like, so always treat people right if they feel like they're mentally incapable or disabled, because you could still tell the difference when you're in that situation. Because I was in that situation and I felt, I could tell my mind was gone. I mean, it is a horrible thing. And when I'm saying horrible, it is a horrible thing with your own mind is coming against you, because that's when stuff that your reality is just off the charts, which means anything can be your reality. I mean, just one off sound can be just like a train coming at you, for example, like anything. But that's your reality because your mind is gone. And at that point, my mind was totally gone. And I know it was demons because, like I said, I was hearing things. I was hearing them speak to me. And the doctors didn't really know what to do. At one point, my mom told me that I had died because they gave me too much medicine, I guess. And they had to give me back with Norcon or something like that. But they had to do that to me to revive me. And I remember my mom had to bring me back, because my mom is actually in the medical profession, so she knew how to bring me back. But she was really ticked off about that because they gave me too much medicine. But I remember feeling like having things talk to me and telling me things. I remember my mom said she was talking to me one time, and I remember at one point I couldn't recognize anybody. I really didn't understand who people were when they came to visit me. And I remember my mom told me that one time when she talked to me, she said something to me, and I said, she said something about God, something, and I said, your God's not going to do anything, or something like that. I knew that was a demon talking through me to her. But so anyway, so I remember there was one nurse there though. I'll never forget this nurse. And it was a black woman, and she just keep saying Jesus' name, keep saying Jesus' name. And for some reason, out of all the things, even when my mom or my dad visited me or anybody else was coming to visit me, I just remembered that, and I kept saying his name. I kept saying his name. There were times when I was actually I came to, because there were certain points where I came to and I could remember, but other points I was just gone. And I remember they put me in this like solitary confinement, and I mean I was in this room, and I was strapped to a bed because I was under. I guess I was under some type of suicide watch, but I was strapped to a bed, and it was a dark room. And as soon as they shut the door, it was all I saw was like this red light in there. And I remember every time they shut the door, there was so many locks on that door because I heard them lock, 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 lock. So doom, lock, 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 lock. I was down there in Florida for about 2-3 weeks, I think, something like that. Maybe 2 weeks. And I remember pleading for my dad. I didn't really know. I just remember him talking to me once. I remember pleading for me to get out of that place because I felt it was a place, but it was really the stuff in me. But I think it was something with the state or wherever I was at. I think it was just the spiritual atmosphere of that place that made it a lot worse. But anyway, so we ended up leaving Florida, and apparently we drove. They couldn't put me on a plane because it was too uh, it was too dangerous because of my state. So what they did was my dad had a buddy come down in a van, and he drove me all the way from Florida back to the place I was at up north. And so when they drove me all the way back, and this is a far place, so I don't want to give the direction out totally, but it's in the Great Lakes region basically. But anyway, they drove me back, and so I ended up being back, and it was I went back, but the only thing was the hospital only let me loose if I got if I would immediately be put into another hospital up north. So they ended up doing that. So I ended up being put into another hospital up north, and I just remember keep saying Jesus, and eventually I got better and better and better. Now what they diagnosed me with, they diagnosed me with bipolar schizophrenia at the time. So they diagnosed me as schizophrenia. Schizophrenia, and I don't know if you know, there's no set cure for schizophrenia. They will give you meds, they can put you on meds, you can do all this stuff, wish for the best, but there's no actual cure to it. But I can tell you one thing, Jesus cured me of that. I hear no voices, because I know it was a demonic oppression going on. And I remember I just kept saying Jesus, 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 Jesus. And I kept praying, and he ended up healing me. He healed me of that. And I remember the first time when I still had, now it took me a while to get better, but I remember when I first got a lot better enough to at least leave the place, the psychiatric place in up north. And the first thing I wanted to do was go back to my old church. And I told my dad, and at that time, my dad was not, it was hard to get him to go to church, to say it like that back then. And I kept saying, I was like, man, he's like, whatever you want to do, because he was just so happy to see me better. He's like, I'll do with you. And I was like, the one thing I want to do is go to church. I was like, that's the first thing I want to do. And I remember going to church, and I remember it was a really busy time. It was tough for me to be around crowds because I was still dealing with anxiety. I was still dealing with stuff. It was hard for me to be around a lot of people. It was difficult. And a lot of other things I was going through, a lot of other side effects with a lot of things. But I slowly got better and better and better, and I got healed of that. Never had a problem. My my psychiatrist I had took me totally off of the huge meds that I was on, concerned to concerning the schizophrenia meds. Took me all off that stuff. But yeah, so I stand here today, and this is just one of my biggest testimonies. And I remember as soon as I got really better and I got back to college, because I had medically dropped my classes at that point, but I re-enrolled into my school. I ended up graduating and everything. But I remember when I first got back, I opened up the Bible and I was like, wow. Because I knew then, I was like, you care about me, Jesus. You healed me, Jesus. I know what I went through. I know that was something that I couldn't comprehend. And you brought me that, and now I have a sound mind. My mind was gone, people. I mean, literally gone. I remember there was certain things that would set me off. And I remember looking at it, I think it was called triggers. If a phone rang, I would lose it. like it would just drive me up a wall if a phone rang. These were certain my triggers I had. I don't know really what it had to do with, but it's really like this. Like I was really bad. I was in bad shape. Um, and it was some deep demonic. I don't know how it happened. I really don't. To this day, I don't know how it happened. Because even then, I was a virgin. It wasn't like I was sleeping around at that point. I was a virgin. I never slept with nobody. Like I said, I was 19. I was a virgin. I never slept with nobody. I never did drugs. The most I did was drink, and it wasn't even that much. Like it wasn't like I was drinking all the time at that point. But I had this experience, and I knew it was the enemy, but then most importantly, I knew it was God that healed me and brought me from that. And since then, when I opened the Bible, the stuff made sense to me. I understood it. I was like, wow, Jesus, I understand it because I know you care. So I care about what you've done for me. You healed me. So I want to live the way you want me to live. And from then on, and I stumbled, believe me, guys, I stumbled a lot after that. So I stumbled a lot, but that was a turning point in my life because at that point I was like, I desired at that. Now, I don't know if I was truly saved at that point, but because I think I was already saved because I'd already asked Jesus, my Lord and Savior. But literally at that point, I knew. I was like, my life is yours, Jesus, and I want to live the way you want me to live. So anytime at that point I started that relationship, true relationship, I would pray to him, I would talk to Jesus, I would worship him, I would thank him. And then at the same time, if I did stumble, I would ask for forgiveness because I really wanted to do the right things. Like I said, I messed up, I would sin, even willful sins I would do sometimes. But at the same time, afterwards, I would always feel ashamed. I would always feel this conviction that would come over me about it. But I just wanted to share my testimony. I hope it helps. I really, I wanted to wait a while, but I think it's important to share my testimony, especially this one YouTuber that was subscribed to my videos. So, and I was looking at, I was looking at her video. She shared her testimony. I was like, maybe I should just share my testimony. So she's the definitely the one of the inspirations to that. So if you're looking, you were the inspiration. And I believe that every Christian should share their testimony because we overcome the enemy by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. And that's the one thing that nobody can refute. Everybody, like if you have an experience with the Lord, even the people that don't know God or don't believe in a God, they can't refute your experience. So you always tell your testimony. If that's the one thing that you can tell somebody that they can't refute, they can't say that didn't happen to you. I've only had one person that actually said that before, but I mean, it's like when you do say something like that, it's like just so ignorant that, because you can't really tell somebody else's story. So I've only had that happen to me once. And believe me, I told my testimony a lot of times to a lot of people. And most of the time when I do tell it, it's to unbelievers because I want to tell them, well, this is how, because when they say they don't believe, I was like, this is how I know Jesus is real. Because he healed me at a time when doctors couldn't heal me. In the time when doctors really couldn't do much. He healed me. So, yeah, that's all I wanted to say. And just thank you for watching my testimony. I appreciate it. I truly do. If you want to subscribe, you can subscribe. But like I said, for me, it's not about subscribers. It's just about just doing the best I can to spread the message of the Lord and his love. So, and knowing that he is the true God, Jesus Christ. And nobody is a God above him. Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, 3 in 1. 3 in 1. All right. Thanks for everything. Thanks for watching. Catch you later.